Welcome back to the Stepbrothers. I'm Wesley Clark here with Andrew Hyden. We got a little tease for the football season with both the spring games happening for Ohio State and the University of Michigan. Andrew, you watched that whole game. There were some things about Michigan and Bryce Young we'll get into. Ohio State, Chris Henry Jr. had a nice game, but what are kind of your first thoughts after watching it?
Yeah, initial thoughts, just kind of a tease. Kind of made me upset, like seeing the 10-minute running quarters and the game just ends. It was like an hour long, and I'm just like reminded of how far away football season is. Yeah, most of Michigan's starters did not play past the first quarter. Cool to see some of the young guys, some of the freshmen, some of the guys who will be contributors for Michigan in the future. But yeah, overall, I don't know. I think I just hype myself up for the spring game too much every year, and then realize that it's just not. It's not supposed to be, what I think I hope it is. But what do you think?
It's really just a practice that
Yeah.
they bring fans into the stadium. I mean, Ohio State, Michigan have one of the biggest stadiums in the world, so it's kind of like a reunion for fans that
Hmm.
we haven't seen each other in so long. Let's do something. But yes, I mean it's trying to evaluate players. Ohio State's trying to figure out who's wide receiver three. I can't get anything from the spring
Yeah.
game. Bo Jackson, it's like he does well off tackles and but you can't that doesn't happen in this spring game. There's not a lot of
Yeah.
tackling, so it's
Yeah.
tough.
It's impossible when they're, playing thud and, uh,
Hmm.
the playbook is very vanilla. It's not, at least from Michigan's side of things, it's never like ones going against ones fully, right? Teams are split up. So it's kind of a shell of what it'll look like in the fall. But yeah, I mean, still cool to see guys in a Michigan uniform again. That's for sure.
Ohio State does do one-on-ones, ones up for 1v1s. They do the 1v2s or second offense versus 2v1. That type of. They mix it up. Then the third strings come in. I will say that the one thing that I do watch every single year is the quarterback play. I think that's important because those you can analyze on accurate throws,
Hmm.
on certain routes. Uh, I mean, there's even videotapes they can watch in practice that it helps. Players. I mean, we knew Julian Sayin was going to be good just based off a lot of videos that came out of practice.
Yeah.
So and then Tavon St. Clair, the former five-star, he had a good game. I guess
Yeah,
a
he
good
looks
spring
solid.
practice. Him and Chris Henry connected for a touchdown. So that it was good to see. Connor Hawkins was hitting several field goals. That was a new thing
Yeah.
that Ohio State fans were watching. It's when you go on Twitter, it's like, holy
That's funny.
cow! Do we have a quick kicker? So maybe we got to roll. Chill out a little bit. Don't want to jinx it, but we'll see. He looks good so far from Connor Hawkins. But those are the
Dude,
kind of
yeah.
the two things I watched this year.
Yeah. Speaking of kicker, because I don't know if this is going to come up later in our conversation, but Michigan's expected to be starting kicker Trey Butkowski missed a 29-yarder, his only attempt for the spring game. And I was sitting there like, bro, are we for real with this?
It's the new Ohio State.
No, I don't know. I'm sure it'll be all right. But like I was like, dude, that is not what I needed to see right there. But
Was the weather? How was the weather? Because
ended up
it
being
was
fine. Yeah. It was supposed to
okay.
snow and rain and be super cold. I think it was still cold, but I mean, it looked to be dry and yeah, good football weather. So
Yeah,
pretty good.
usually about 80,000 fans show up. They don't pack house.
Yeah.
Students. Students go, they tailgate, go for a little bit. They sit and watch, and then you get kind of the hometown fans.
Yeah.
You don't really travel. I'm not gonna. I live on the East Coast. I'm not gonna travel all the way to Ohio to go watch a
Right.
spring game.
Yeah.
So it's 80 around the 8,000, but it was raining, which people end up leaving. But yeah, both Ohio State and Michigan. Obviously, Penn State also gets a good crowd usually. Those bigger schools do well with the spring game.
Yeah. All right. Well, what do you want to get into first? You want to hop on the Michigan side of
Well,
things? Ohio
yeah,
State.
because I mean, I didn't get to watch the Michigan game, and there's a lot of social media around Bryce Young and going
Bryce
in.
Young.
Bryce Young, Bryce Underwood, close.
Kind of.
Uh, Bryce Underwood and his expectation in year two, obviously, what, 10 touchdowns last year in the air,
Yeah, I think it ended up being
what,
11.
11 with the bowl game. Was that what it
Yeah.
was? Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's. he needs a big, he needs to step up big time if Michigan wants to get back in the college football playoffs. But I'll go ahead and please tell me like what you saw in that spring game with him.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of overreactions, right? He only played the first quarter. He played for both teams, which is interesting the way they set that up. But it was 10 minutes running clock. So I think he took like 14 total dropbacks, got sacked twice. Um, it was mix and matched offensive lines. I'm not sure exactly what the five were on each team. But one, the pass protection was just kind of bad all around when Bryce was in the game. Definitely could use some improvement in that regard. And that's something that coaches have been talking about as room for improvement. So that wasn't necessarily a surprise. But yeah, I mean, he finished 3 for 9. I'm looking at the stats right here. 3 for 9, 22 passing yards. He had one decent scramble, but then again, they weren't really tackling him. So
Yeah.
who's to know how that really would look like in a game situation. And then he had one just horrific throw, not a turnover, but he threw it into triple coverage to JJ Buchanan. JJ Buchanan actually almost came down with it. It was like the only time I saw him on the field. I'm sure the coaches know what they're getting out of JJ Buchanan. He's going to be a guy similar to Andrew Marsh this year. But yeah, I would say people on social media are, obviously jumping to conclusions, calling Bryce Underwood terrible. I wouldn't say that he looked awful. I mean, it's a small sample size. He did have a nice 18-yard completion over the middle in a tight window, but to me, he just looked very similar to last year. He looked sped up. He missed a wide open out route, sailed it over the dude's head. I saw that a million times last year, forced a ball into coverage. And I think that's the more concerning thing. It's not like he played like otherworldly bad, but just some of his attributes, like him getting sped up in the pocket and not setting his feet, overthrowing receivers. That's what still kind of concerns me. And I'd be lying if I said I wasn't concerned for this year. I mean, I think expectations are just as high as they were last year, and now he has much less excuses in terms of what he has around him and the system he's going to be put in. So, yeah, I think a lot of Michigan fans have the right to be at least nervous. That's what I would say.
Yes, there is no excuse. You're
No.
obviously a true freshman. There it's tough. He doesn't have a veteran presence with him. That was big for CJ Stroud having Justin Fields,
Mm-hmm.
and that why he was successful. Bryce Young didn't. Bryce Underwood didn't have that. Um, Bryce Young on my head.
That's fair.
But you have a whole year of experience. I mean
Right, starting experience in the Big Ten.
that is the best. That is second to nothing in terms of development.
Yeah,
So yeah, there's no excuse. Kyle Whittingham, he runs a good. He has had a successful offense. He had one at Utah. They dropped 45 points against Ohio State in the Rose Bowl. So he has the weapons now. With Marsh and Buchanan. Yes, I 100% would be where you and probably the majority of very intense Michigan fans are right now with Bryce Underwood.
yeah, yeah. And again, it's not like I don't think his job is at risk, right? Not right now. Kyle Whittingham actually said in the post game, he was like, "Yeah, Bryce is still our QB1."
Of
Not
course.
surprising. It's a spring game. Plus, when you're only in the game for a few plays, maybe you're trying to do a little bit more than you maybe you should. Try to force some plays down the field. He actually had one throw on the run down. It was in the end zone to Celesi Moa. It was just like a hair out of Celesi Moa's reach. If he completes that, maybe people are singing a completely different tune here. But yeah, I think also what plays into the concern for Michigan fans is the fact that backup Tommy Carr played so well and I mean, Bryce Underwood was not. If you just were in a coma for the last 3 years and you came back to watch Michigan football and you watched those two quarterbacks on Saturday, you would not know who was the starter all of last year and who was the quarterback who was committed to Miami, Ohio, like 4 months ago before flipping to Michigan. I mean, he was way more athletic than I had given him credit for. He was able to beat defenders around the edge. He looked comfortable in the pocket. His arm strength is obviously not Bryce Underwood's. There was one throw that he actually completed down the field where it was like it looked like he was in the air for about 4 seconds. I mean, it was an absolute noodle throw. I have no idea how it landed in the receiver's arms. So, like from a physical attribute standpoint, like he's skinny, he still needs to develop in that area. But in terms of commanding the offense, I thought he did a really good job. Um, the coaches have all been raving about Tommy Carr this spring and how he's been the surprise of the spring so far, and that was absolutely on display. So
It's good to have a backup QB. It's big. It makes a big difference. Ohio State that last year was Lincoln Keenholz. I'm honestly disappointed he didn't get more involved. I think that things would have been different if he would have been in the game against Indiana and Miami on short
where did he
conversions.
transfer to again?
Louisville.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Okay.
That didn't happen. They had packages set for him and they never used
Yeah.
them on fourth down, fourth and ones, and we saw how that went for Julian Sayin, and that's something that they are working on with Julian Sayin. If we can go into the if you're done with Bryce, we can go
Sure.
into
Yeah.
stuff we're talking about with the
Yeah.
Ohio
Let's
State
talk about it. I'm
quarterbacks.
sure. Yeah.
Because in terms of overreacting, Tavion St. Clair threw for 166 yards. Had that huge touchdown to Chris Henry Jr. and all of a sudden I
Dude,
see Justin
that was
Fields.
beautiful.
Yeah, it was a nice
That was
throw.
like, sorry, I'm gonna cut you off. But what was
Yeah,
it?
go
Was
ahead.
that throw like I know you're thinking of the throw I'm thinking about. It was like Justin Fields to Garrett Wilson or something, or just an
Yes,
absolute bomb in like the semifinal game or something like that.
it was. Yeah. It was to Chris Olave against Clemson, where he kind of rolled his right a little bit, or no, he just kind of backed up and just
Just
sailed
launched
it
it. Yeah.
like 60 yards right to Olave. He did the same thing. Chris Henry kind of down the sidelines, and then all of a sudden Julian Sand has competition. So talk about overreaction. You go from
Oh, okay. I didn't know that was a narrative at
it
all.
was it was. There was a few people that made comments about it because Julian Sand can't run. It's like, okay, is that we saw Cardell Jones ran. He's one of the reasons why that he won the national championship in 2014. Obviously, J.T. Barrett, Braxton Miller were mobile. Will Howard was even at his size. So
Hmm.
it's kind of like, what's the bump in the road for Julian Sand in a national championship? Is it his running? Tavion St. Clair can run as
Yeah.
well, being as big as he is. So there's a lot of overreactions. Obviously, it's nice to have a QB as a backup. That is good.
Yeah.
And it seems like Michigan might have theirs.
Yeah.
But it kind of, these are situations where you hope that a quarterback gets more involved. I mean, Lincoln Keenholz had been there for a while, 3 years. Tavion was only there last year, and I hope he doesn't transfer after this year. But
Yeah.
those are kind of things that are not
Yeah. Well,
in Ohio
Sayin is
State's
draft
control.
eligible, so
Yes, he is. I'd be the way that he played last year. If he played the exact same, I'd kind of be shocked if he went to the NFL.
okay, that's fair.
He's,
Yeah.
I mean, 6'2", what was it, 210?
If that.
So
Yeah.
it's pretty short, skinny. Um, if that, yeah, that's right. But I mean, it was over. It was good. I mean, Luke Faley, he 4-star quarterback. He got some reps, threw 8 passes. He's very mobile. Had 73 rushing yards. So maybe he's the Lincoln Keenholz that of the season. I don't know. We'll have to see. Again, it's hard to evaluate because defense is not going 100% on the quarterbacks because they don't allow that. Bo Jackson, it's hard to evaluate the running game. But the Ohio State quarterbacks, they look good overall. I mean, Julian Sands, he's threw 15 passes, second most. St. Clair had 21, which is the
Hmm.
most out of the quarterbacks. But they overall they played well.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. These overreactions to spring games are funny, and even you know me, I'm an overreactor myself. But the things that some people say on social media after the spring game, I wouldn't even go that far. Um, but it is kind of funny to watch. I did see Julian Sayin rush for a touchdown though. I know they weren't tackling him, and they probably could have, but
Yeah, in the press conference, he was asked if he would have made it. I'm trying to, yeah, no, he said he would have, but
thinking
it
about
was,
the clip, I don't know about
yeah,
that.
yeah, no, I mean, it was Pierce was one of the linebackers who will have a bigger role this year. He would have tackled him. I mean, you're holding up well before 4 or 5 steps before when you're going after your quarterback. You just don't want to hit him. He wasn't
Right.
making it.
No. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's we'll have to see actually in game. I mean, they don't have to play Texas game one, but I believe it's Ball State. So if he can show that he can do it, then because he's gonna have to do against Texas
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. And that is one thing about Bryce too. I mean, the design run is going to be a huge part of his game this year, and obviously they weren't showing that in the spring game because why would you design run at someone who's not going to be tackled? I mean, that doesn't make any sense. So hopefully that can at least ease some pressure on him. But man, it just the talent he has is. I knew we were talking about Julian Sayin, but the talent he has, and him and St. Clair were in the same recruiting class. So watching the difference between
Yep.
those two in the spring game concerns me a little bit. But
Yeah, St. Clair. I mean, when that recruiting class, he was. I mean, he had been a 5-star for a while, but he ended up just going up way on the rankings.
yeah, I remember him shooting up. Yeah,
shooting up big time. Just I guess high school film, and I mean he's shown it for sure. I mean he's done a good job. I do hope to see him. I mean he looks good.
No, yeah,
And then obviously Chris Henry having 96 yards, having that touchdown from Tavion. I mean he's gonna be. Is he wide receiver 3? Maybe. I mean it's hard to tell with a true freshman. We obviously saw that with Jeremiah Smith, but that's an anomaly.
yeah. Well, it's an
But
anomaly. Marvin Harrison Jr. was an anomaly until he wasn't.
yeah, I mean
Yeah,
those guys. Yeah, I mean those guys. Well, Marvin Harrison didn't play his freshman year.
I thought he
That
did.
he didn't. He played in the. I mean, as much as freshmen play when you're up big time in a bowl game against Utah, when Chris Olave and Garrett Wilson aren't playing, yeah, he scored
Yeah.
2 touchdowns. JSN scored 3. So yes, I mean most of these guys don't play as a freshman.
Yeah,
JSN really didn't either. Garrett Wilson, Chris Olave didn't. I mean, it's Tam McLaurin barely even played as a junior. So I mean,
yeah,
Jeremiah Smith has been that freshman wide receiver out of
yeah,
all these guys that Hartline has recruited.
yeah.
And
Well,
maybe Chris Henry is that next one.
I'll say, I mean, obviously, you can't hold Chris Henry Jr. to the same standard as Jeremiah Smith was his freshman year because,
Right.
like you said, that might not ever happen again. But it is interesting
Yeah.
how they are different. Like the style is different. Chris Henry Jr. is what, like 6'6"? I mean, he looks super tall.
Yeah. He's taller
More
than.
skinny, more finesse. Where Jeremiah Smith is very, I mean, he's an amazing route runner, but he's very much like physical. Get into your body, create space.
Jeremiah Smith might be the most physical
Yeah.
wide receiver in the country, to the point where I mean I don't know if you remember the Oregon game. Ohio State had a offensive pass interference that actually cost Ohio State possibly the game.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming that you're able to kick it, but that cost Ohio State a game because of his physicality. Which I mean, you saw at times. Maybe I think I recall one more time where I thought maybe he'd be called for pass interference. No, but yeah, he's very physical. Chris Henry isn't that stocky dude. Obviously, I mean, he's also only 18, so maybe that changes. But yeah, very much so.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, wide receiver U still seems to be somewhat alive. So
yeah,
Chris Henry Jr. keeping it alive. We'll see if he can move into the wide receiver 3 spot. Who else is in the mix? I mean, Ennis is looking to fill in that role, right?
Boyd, he's
right, other freshman.
Freshman Brock Boyd.
Yeah, I've heard the name.
There's I'm trying to the transfer wide receiver from UTSA, McClune. He's kind of a slot wide receiver, kind of similar to Ennis. I mean, I don't think that anyone's taking Ennis' spot. He's pretty good in that position. So if I had to guess, Chris Henry, I mean, I guess that would be your wide receiver 3. I mean, it's also it's really impossible to see. Maybe there's a lot more substitutions in that position.
Yeah.
That might go more heavy. I mean, think about it. You got Arthur Smith, who's known for his heavy personnel. Nate Roberts is supposed to have a big year at the tight end position. Maybe they focus more on that throughout the season. And ISO Jeremiah and Brandon Ennis. We'll have to see.
Yeah. Well, got lots of weapons. Good problem to have.
Right.
It's just about managing the personnel, being able to get guys in the right positions. Something I don't think Brian Hartline did very well. I'm sure you agree.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's about getting the ball in your best players' hands. That's especially in college football. That's the name of the game. But on the Michigan side of things, because you're not the only one with offensive weapons now. Michigan, this is one of the biggest takeaways for me. Michigan does have talent on the off. Like from the skill position standpoint, they're not all 5 stars running around, but compared to what we've had the last 2 years, especially, even the championship team did not have. I mean, outside of Roman Wilson, Cornelius Johnson was pretty good, but it was the tight ends really that shined more in the pass game. But man, this running back room I'll start with is going to be absolutely loaded. Last year that duo with Justice Haynes and Jordan Marshall was elite. I wouldn't be surprised if the Jordan Marshall Savion Hyder duo wasn't just as good. As crazy as that is to say, I don't think as much. Hopefully, not as much the offense is relying on the running backs, but I mean, Savion Hyder is a true freshman. He is absolutely jacked. He looks like he's 25 years old. He's an absolute bowling ball. There was one play where he just absolutely went headfirst into Dom Nichols, who's a veteran edge guy, completely just bull rushed him downfield, downhill, and broke a tackle. He looks really good. Obviously, they still have Bryson Kuzdal as that's a pretty good option to have as your running back 3. So yeah, I think the running back room is pretty in a pretty good position at Michigan. It always seems to be. But then the receivers, I think that's the biggest thing. Jamie French, Celestia Moa, the true freshman, even Travis Johnson, I think he only got 1 target in the spring game, but has been getting some buzz in spring camp. And then obviously you have Andrew Marsh and JJ Buchanan, who Andrew Marsh, I think, had 1 or 2 targets. JJ Buchanan had 1, but they're going to be big players in this offense. So from the skill position standpoint, Michigan is absolutely in a better position than they were last year in terms of surrounding the quarterback and the offense with talent. And I can say that with definite certainty after seeing Saturday's game.
Yeah, I mean, the offense suffered big time when Hayes went down, and you saw it weekly.
Mm-hmm.
It was, I mean, you then relied on a walk-on running back. You have to remind me of his name.
That's Bryson Kuzdal, which I said, like,
Okay.
he's good, but he's a running
Yeah.
back 3, and that, but he excels at that.
Right. Wide receiver position, Marsh had he had a fantastic year with the game against Ohio State. I mean, I can't recall him doing anything.
Oh no, but I mean, he had like 1 target.
Right, and because he's not getting the ball from Bryce Underwood. I mean, that's a major
Right.
issue, and that's what Underwood's gonna have to do. He got to get the ball to your weapons, that's when things start to get serious for a quarterback. If you can't get the ball to to NFL talent. I mean, it's just
Right.
throw a 50-50 ball. I mean, make yourself look good. Make your wide receivers make you look good. That's what Ohio State
Right.
receivers do. So you
No,
got to do
and
something like that.
yeah, and even looking, I mean, obviously Bryce didn't play all that well. Tommy Carr played well, but it's not like the passing game was exploding, right? But you can just tell looking at some of the film from different clips, like these guys are getting open. Like Jamie French is an elite route runner. Celestia Moa is getting open. That was a huge issue, especially against man coverage last year. Guys just couldn't seem to separate. You can just tell by the way these guys move that they're going to be in a much better position. Now, whether the system and whether Bryce Underwood sets them up to succeed and actually be able to make plays, that's another thing. But in terms of just the talent, the ability to get open, and the ability to make plays after the catch, I think Michigan's in a pretty good spot.
Yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. They'll have to click. We saw
Mm-hmm.
what failed for Ohio State last year. I mean, part of it was coaching, part of it was Julian Sayin, late in the season, not seeing several times missing wide open wide receivers and tight ends, underthrowing Jeremiah Smith against Indiana on an obvious touchdown, and later
Mm-hmm.
and it led to no points because of a failed 4th and 1. So it's just a lot of things that have to happen. But this is definitely in the right trajectory for Michigan, especially compared
Right.
to last year. It's just Bryce Underwood, clicking with the offensive coordinator, and
Yeah.
if the guys with these weapons can actually go out there real game time and do exactly what they need to do. The last thing I
Yeah.
have to say about Ohio State, something that has suffered at times for just Ohio State in general is the offensive line, and
Mm-hmm.
they looked very good against a D line that is young and not as experienced. Now you have Qual Rashaw and in there. but they look good. Luke Montgomery and Carson Hintzman specifically, the center and the left guard, they looked fantastic. Luke Montgomery was a freshman that year that Ohio State won the national championship. He stepped up big time when Josh Simmons went down, who's now with the Chiefs. He had a great job filling in, and just dominated in that playoff run, and opened a lot of holes for Junkins and Travion, and did the same thing last year for Bo Jackson. So it's a lot more experience O line in general, which is big in that position. I mean, wide receivers and quarterbacks. If a guy is just fundamentally good, he will make plays. But O-line, I mean, you're going up against guys who will be NFL talent, especially against Texas, Michigan,
Yeah,
IU, Oregon. The more the years you have under your belt, the better at this position.
yeah. Especially, I mean, playing in the Big Ten, at this point, the
It's physical.
philosophy for Ohio State has definitely shifted, even under Ryan Day. I mean, from his time as an OC to head coach, now that you have Arthur Smith in the mix too, I mean, they're going to want to be able to run the ball. That's not going anywhere. You have to be able to establish the run game. Obviously, they've got elite guys running around catching passes from a previous Heisman runner-up quarterback, or not runner-up, but Heisman finalist quarterback. But yeah, obviously that offensive line is huge. We've seen Ohio State, struggle in that national championship run, and with injuries and the ability for guys to step up and fill those holes was, I think, I don't know, I'm sure you would agree with me here, a huge part of why they were able to continue success in the playoff. So
Yeah, I mean, the team looked a lot different from that playoff run to the regular season. Will Howard didn't run a ton in the regular season, and he was
yeah,
forced to. Carnell Tate had to get open a lot more. I mean, they were bracketing Jeremiah Smith, who had 3 catches against Texas, but
hmm
Carnell Tate went off. Emeka Buka was, getting double teamed at times. Brennan Ennis um, had had a phenomenal playoff run on. He was put in very crucial spots on 3rd and long against that Notre Dame team, and did a great job there. So yes, I mean, Ohio State. That's the thing about a program like this. There's the next guy up. I mean, if you and you can go back to this Bryce Underwood situation, the backup QB will perform and will win games for Michigan. So he doesn't have excuses like we said, and with these two programs, there's a lot of talent that is on the bench, and there's reasons why when Ohio State players transfer, Michigan players transfer, they're going to Notre Dame and they're going to
yeah,
Georgia and LSU. They're not just going to uh, you know what UCLA, Memphis. It's a
right.
lot of talent. It's
No, yeah,
can't start off.
you're 100% right. I mean, even last year, Bryce Underwood had no real competition at the quarterback one spot. No shade to Jaden Davis. He's at Eastern Tennessee State now, or East Tennessee State. Mikey Keene was supposed to be that veteran guy in the room. He was hurt all year. Now, with Tommy Carr looking good, obviously you still got Braden Fowler Nicolosi coming in the summer from Colorado State. I mean, Bryce he's going to be pushed. His job is not the job is his right now, but
It's his to
it's not.
lose.
Yeah, it's his to lose, and guys are absolutely going to be vying for that spot. So, but anyway, I want to talk before we wrap up. I want to talk a little bit about defense because we've been talking a lot of offense. Obviously, that's the exciting part. Tell me a little bit about what you saw from the Ohio State defense. Obviously, losing a ton of talent to the NFL. Um, we thought in 2025 they were going to be, it was going to be difficult for them to replace the Jack Sawyer and JTT and be able to be an effective unit. They ended up being even better, sending more guys to the NFL now. But now you're replacing guys like Sonny Styles, Arvell Reese, Caleb Downs. Tell me about some of those younger guys, how they're going to fit into the Matt Patricia system.
Yeah, I think the route that Ohio State took this year was shoving money to guys who had already experience at top-notch programs such as
Mhm.
FSU, and 2 guys from Alabama, Qual and James Smith. Those are 2 guys I was looking at. They did a good job. Those were actually the 2 guys that dominated the O-line uh, from Alabama, who have both lost their black strips very quickly in practice. Earl Little Jr. got a little bit of playing time. He looked good. He's supposed to be one of the better corners in the secondary in the Big Ten. It's a little harder to evaluate the defense because they weren't going thud offense, which is
Yeah.
tackling, maybe 10% of the time, and it was hard. I think they're really trying. The biggest question I have, and obviously the Ohio State defense has been gutted. I mean, this is not the national championship team anymore. Brandon, what's not a lot of starters at key positions from when Will Howard and Junkins and Trevion were here. Jeremiah Smith, obviously Brandon Ennis wasn't a starter. Julian Sayin wasn't obviously wasn't playing. So it's different for sure. This is definitely the thing is with college, there's no rebuild. There's not enough time to do that. You have to reload immediately, which
Yeah.
Ohio
Well,
State does a good
don't have
job
to.
there.
Yeah.
Uh, so I think the transfer portal is the route that Ohio State's going to go every single year after watching what IU did. Just having an old presence and old locker room and guys on the field with what 50 games under their belt.
Hmm.
I named three guys that I enjoyed watching spring game, and they didn't start their careers at Ohio State.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's going to be. It's going to be the news around
Yeah.
Columbus every single offseason.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Is
Um,
there? I mean, same thing. Same thing with Michigan as well.
yeah.
I mean, you guys kind of gutted as well on the defense side. I think the linebacker position took a hit.
Good at linebacker. Defensive line returns. They lose a lot of guys, but returns a lot of their key guys. Returns a lot of guys who actually contributed. The secondary is going to be the absolute strength of this team. I can just tell you they're absolutely loaded in the secondary. Jair Hill, Smith, Snowden, Zeke Berry. I mean, Chris Bracey is a transfer from Memphis. There's so many guys that I don't even know how they're all going to fit in. We have a ton of guys who could play nickel, a ton of guys who could play boundary corner. Some of the young guys too, like Shamari Earls is a true sophomore, played a little bit last year. Jamarion Vincent's a freshman who might play a little bit. I mean, that talent, along with the fact that Jay Hill runs a very secondary, free roaming, safety focused, disguise coverage focused defense. I think that secondary is going to be put in position for a lot of turnovers, create a lot of chaos, create a lot of confusion for opposing quarterbacks. And I think that is the main thing that excites me a ton. Outside of that, I know we talked about the struggles of Michigan's pass protection and how it's been an issue all of spring practice. Obviously, their best five wasn't all on the same team. But I thought the defensive line looked really impressive. That, along with linebacker, you remember us talking about in kind of that early offseason, was my biggest concern. The D line looks really good. I mean, Weta and Trey Pierce look poised to make big jumps. Jonah Liea is a Utah transfer who looked really fast out there, explosive. I expect him to be really good. And then some of the young guys, like David Pale is a guy that looks completely different physically than he did in the fall. I mean, he looks more muscular. He looks, somehow he's got wider shoulders. He looks like a physical freak in there. Nate Marshall on the edge is a sophomore. He was a 5-star. I feel like he's going to contribute a lot. Bobby Kenka had a big, that's a young guy who most people probably don't even know about, who had a big goal line stuff. So yeah, and I just ramble a little bit about some of the young guys, but those, I would say defensively was a huge positive surprise. Even the linebackers like Troy Bowles looked really good, just to name one. But I expected, this was maybe a hot take, but I think a lot of Michigan fans expected maybe the offense to be better than the defense next season, just with the weapons on offense that we thought we had, or that we do have, and with Jason Beck coming in. But man, from what I just saw from the defense, I think that's going to be hard to say now.
That's a good question. I can't give a definite answer on which side of the ball I think Ohio State will be better. I mean, when you
Mm,
have two guys who can win the Heisman on offense, that's the easy choice in Jeremiah and Julian Sayin. But Keaton Jackson Jr. returning for his senior year, who had a good year last year. I mean, that's another guy, who's been on Ohio State for a while, has waited his turn.
mm,
Was behind Caden Curry. I mean, not
yeah,
Jack Sawyer and
yeah,
Tomoyao. And he comes back for senior year. And then Quabershaw and those guys. Obviously, when you lose Downs, that's huge.
right.
Cam McDonald, to me, I think is Loki the biggest hit on
Well, I mean, there's just not a
on
lot of guys
defense.
like that in college football. Period.
Yeah, especially on the D line, it's
No,
tough.
yeah,
So yeah, I would
a
probably
true
just. I mean, if
nose
I
who's that
had,
good. Yeah.
yeah, I mean, if I had to, I would pick the offense. That's
Hmm.
because of Bo Jackson and Smith and Sayin and Ennis and possibly what Chris Henry Jr. could do. But yeah, I mean, that's good for Michigan. I mean, it's a lot easier to improve on defense than offense. I think if I
Yeah.
was a Michigan fan, I'd be worried about, what we've been talking about this 30 minutes
Oh yeah, no,
twice.
I'm definitely still worried. Don't worry about me over here. I'm as
Yeah,
worried as it gets. You know me when it comes to the
exactly.
offense. I mean, 7-6 final score. I think that it's 10-minute running
Saw that.
clock, but you know,
I did see that. I mean,
uh,
that's it. I mean, that's the last thing I had to say about Ohio State. A lot of things that they have to improve on. Obviously, it's hard to. I do enjoy watching a spring game the same way I would like to watch a media practice.
mhm.
It's but at the same time, how much can you really
It's
worry
practice.
about it?
Yeah, they're not trying to win. The coordinator's not even calling plays. You know,
Right.
but it's a good look at the players and see how they're kind of developing. I'll say the physical transformation for me for a lot of those guys, the strength and conditioning staff, I think is obvious, and that's obviously quantifiable. So that's good to see. Um, yeah. Oh, I will say, I know it's the spring and they're not showing a lot of like advanced pressures or anything, but something that I was mad that Wink Martindale didn't do more of was run stunts, twists. Jay Hill or his defense, I know he wasn't calling it, but the defense running a ton of stunts, ton of movement on the defensive line. Was not pleased with the offensive line's ability to pick up those stunts because they did a horrible job of it.
Hmm.
But a lot of movement. They were able to create a ton of pressure, and there were no 5-man zone blitzes that left the middle of the field wide open. So at this point, in the spring, that's all you had to do to impress me, Jay Hill, and consider me impressed.
Yeah, and next week at this time we'll be talking about the NFL draft that is happening this
Yeah.
in a few days. And a lot of guys, especially from the Ohio State side, that we talk about Styles and Downs. We'll have to see where they go. Carnell Tate. So that's what we'll be talking about next week. But
Yeah, that'll be
well,
probably a more Ohio State heavy episode.
but yeah, it was good to see these guys, right now, and we'll see them again in several months. Well, we have a whole
Yeah,
summer, and then
139 days till September 5th.
exactly whole summer,
Who's
and
counting?
right, not you. But yeah, I mean, obviously, let us know what you guys thought. I'm curious on Andrew's question of what side of the ball you think is better on
Yeah,
for Michigan, Ohio State on the offensive defense. I'm still kind of. I think the defense could maybe not as good as last year, but you know, good enough to get to the playoff for sure. But yeah, obviously go follow us on TikTok. Um, yeah, are you still posting about the championship?
I haven't posted in a while on TikTok. No, I kind of fell
Ah,
off. I've been locked in on academic matters
there you
and
go.
been distracted a little bit, but I'll
Yeah,
get
go
back.
follow us on Twitter, Stepbros underscore pod. But yeah, this is good. It was good to see the boys out in the uniforms
It
on the
was good,
gridiron.
good to see the big house, and it felt like football for a little bit.
Finally, little tease. But yeah, thank you for watching. We'll see you guys next week for some NFL recap.